The door slammed shut with a deafening clang. Darkness swallowed the unit, leaving only the faint glow from the laptop screen. The air inside felt suddenly smaller, heavier. Alvarez drew her gun, the metallic click echoing off the walls. Miller moved to the door and yanked hard, but it didn't budge. "They've locked it from the outside." From somewhere beyond the metal, the voice came again. "You were warned, Daniel. Now it's too late." Before we continue, comment below where you are watching from, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Like this video, share it with someone who loves a good twist, and let's see if you can guess who's really behind the voice before the next video drops. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. He grabbed the nearest hard drive and stuffed it into his jacket. Alvarez was already scanning the unit for another way out. The only other exit was a small ventilation grate near the ceiling, far too narrow for any of them. "Listen," Daniel whispered, "that voice? I know it. I heard it the night Melissa called me." Alvarez shot him a look. "And you're just telling me this now?" "I wasn't sure until now," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "But it's him. The one she was afraid of." On the laptop screen, the recorded detective was still speaking, his voice glitching in and out. "If you find this, don't go to the police, they're already inside." The video cut to static. And then, impossibly, the static cleared, not to the recording but to a live feed. A man in a dark raincoat appeared on the screen, standing outside the very unit they were trapped in. His face was hidden in shadow, but his voice was unmistakable. It was the same one circling the unit. "Hand over the drives, Daniel, and maybe you'll walk out of here. Keep them, and you won't see daylight again." Alvarez stepped forward, pointing her weapon at the screen as if she could shoot through it. "Who are you?" she demanded. The man chuckled. "I'm the reason your department still exists. But that can change." Miller was now frantically working the lock from inside, sweat running down his temple. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before backup gets here, if they even come." The figure on the screen tilted his head. "They won't. I've made sure of it." Suddenly, the laptop camera shifted, revealing something that froze Daniel's blood. Melissa. She was alive, bound to a chair, her eyes wide and pleading. A strip of duct tape covered her mouth. Alvarez whispered, "What the hell?" The man's voice cut through. "She was never dead, Daniel. You just had to believe she was. Makes you easier to control." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Every memory of the covered body bag in the rain slammed back into him. Had it all been staged? "Where is she?" Daniel roared, stepping toward the laptop. The man didn't answer directly. Instead, he leaned closer to the camera. "You have something I want. I have someone you want. Let's trade." Before anyone could respond, the live feed cut to black. At the same moment, the storage unit's bulb flickered back on, revealing a small black device on the floor that hadn't been there before. Miller picked it up carefully. "It's a tracker, and it's armed with something." Alvarez's eyes went wide. "It's a time charge. We've got less than 90 seconds. Panic exploded in the small space. Miller went back to the door, kicking at it with everything he had. Alvarez tore through boxes, searching for anything heavy enough to smash through the lock. Daniel's hands trembled, clutching the drive against his chest. He could hear the faint, rapid beeping from the device growing faster. Miller cursed under his breath. "It's no good, we're not getting out that way." Alvarez turned to Daniel, her voice hard. "If you know anything about this unit, now is the time to talk." Daniel's eyes darted upward, toward the ventilation grate. In seconds they had dragged the metal cabinet beneath it. Alvarez climbed first, ripping the grate free. The opening was small but just enough for them to squeeze through. Daniel shoved the hard drive into Alvarez's bag and boosted her up. Miller followed next. The beeping was now frantic. Daniel climbed last, his shoulders scraping against the metal, his breath ragged. Halfway through, the device on the floor emitted one long, shrill tone. And then the world behind them erupted in a flash of white. The blast ripped through the row of storage units, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Daniel tumbled out of the vent, hitting the wet asphalt hard. Alvarez and Miller grabbed him, pulling him to his feet as debris rained down. From the smoke, a dark sedan peeled away, its taillights vanishing into the rain. Daniel knew who was inside. And he knew Melissa was with them. Alvarez's voice was low, almost a growl. "We just went from a homicide case to a full-scale abduction. And now, we're dealing with someone who planned every second of this." Daniel stared at the burning storage unit, his jaw clenched. "Then we planned faster." Somewhere in the distance, a phone began to ring, not theirs. They turned. On the ground, near the edge of the alley, lay an old flip phone. Its screen flashed with one word. Answer. Daniel bent down, flipped it open and put it to his ear. The voice on the other end was calm, almost amused. You have 24 hours, Daniel. After that, she disappears forever. The flip phone lay cold in Daniel's hand long after the line went dead. 24 hours. The words rang in his head like the ticking of a clock he couldn't silence. Alvarez's eyes met his. We're not waiting for them to make the next move. We go now. They started at the precinct, quietly pulling internal case files on the missing persons Melissa had been investigating. The pattern was impossible to miss. Every victim had been tied to a single task force from 8 years ago. A task force that was officially disbanded, but still appeared to be operating in secret. Miller found the name buried in an archived memo. The Ashford Unit. It was supposed to dismantle organized crime. Instead, it had become part of it. Daniel clenched his fists. Melissa must have gotten proof. And that's why they took her, Alvarez said. Through hacked traffic cams and favors called in from the few officers she trusted, Alvarez traced the sedan from the storage unit to an abandoned warehouse on the docks. It was nearly midnight when they arrived. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with salt and rust. Shadows clung to every corner of the corrugated metal building. They moved fast, Miller covering the rear, Alvarez leading point, Daniel close behind. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous, lit only by a few swaying bulbs. Crates lined the walls, some marked with police evidence tags, others with symbols Daniel didn't recognize. Then he heard it. A muffled cry. They followed the sound to a small locked office at the back. Daniel's heart pounded as he kicked the door in. Melissa was there, tied to a chair, her wrists raw, eyes red but still fierce. He ran to her, pulling the tape from her mouth. It's okay. I've got you. Her voice was hoarse. No, you don't. They're still here. A slow clap echoed from the shadows. The man in the raincoat stepped into the light, face now visible. He was older, sharp-eyed, his smirk carrying the weight of years of untouchable power. Alvarez froze. Captain Harris. Her voice cracked. You've been retired for years. Retired, Harris said, is just another word for invisible. He stepped closer, ignoring the gun in Alvarez's hands. You could have walked away, Daniel. But you had to play hero. Now you've seen too much. Miller moved to flank him, but Harris only smiled. You think this ends with me? The Ashford unit was built to survive anything. Cut off one head. He tapped his temple. 2 more take its place. Daniel's grip tightened on the hard drive in his pocket. Not if the whole world sees what's on this. Harris's smile faltered. That drive, Daniel continued, has every deal, every payoff, every name. You didn't just take my sister, you handed me the knife to end you. For the first time, Harris looked uncertain. And then the sound of sirens filled the air. Not 1 or 2, but dozens. Alvarez's backup had arrived, officers she knew she could trust. They poured into the warehouse, weapons raised. Harris was forced to the ground, his hands cuffed behind him. Melissa was freed, pulling Daniel into a trembling embrace. I knew you'd come. Daniel held her tighter than he ever had. I'll never leave again. Hours later, as dawn broke over the docks, Alvarez stood beside Daniel and Melissa. Harris was in custody. The drives were secured. And for the first time in years, Melissa was safe. But Daniel knew the fight wasn't over. The Ashford unit wasn't just one man, it was a network. And somewhere out there, others were still pulling strings. Melissa squeezed his hand. What now? Daniel looked out at the sunrise, his jaw set. Now, we finish it. The case of the brother at the scene started with a body bag in the rain and ended with a conspiracy laid bare. But some shadows run deeper than daylight can reach, and Daniel's fight isn't truly over. If you followed this story from the first moment to this final scene, thank you. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a true crime story that twists and turns until the very last second. And stay tuned, because the next case may already be closer than you think.